hello, Polly. Sorry to be exactly 13 seconds late. I should chill out and do some breath work.
Yes, you need it. 13 seconds delay.
Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, and out of all the modalities that we should be practicing right now, it's breath work.
It certainly is. And just because I'm in a wintry wonderland, I've brought a bit of white Christmas feels with my beanie. But yes, breath work is just absolutely ideal for this time of year because it's so discreet. You can do it at any overladen Christmas table with the relatives that your nervous system is having a moment with.
That's a great hint. You have the tools. We can give you this capacity. And I noticed that on your beautiful website, you've got 3 free breath works to calm you down if needed. What is it? 3 free breath works to energize your mind, expand your lungs, and regulate your nervous system.
That is the superpower of breath work. And, I really love it as a modality because there's a democratizing element to it, because for majority of us who have lungs that work, we are able to breathe. And even if we have difficulties with our respiratory system, we can still use it as a key regulating part of our function. And in life, we're going through life all the time being sort of stimulated and aroused and sort of upregulated by the things happening around us, particularly at this time of year and after 2 years of uncertainty and risk and doubt during COVID. And a lot of us have nervous systems that are really getting a little bit frazzled. And the joy of breath work is that it is the key thing which helps our nervous systems regulate. So we can kick our parasympathetic nervous system into gear with some subtle breathing. And as I said, it doesn't have to be big and showy. We're not dancing. We're not, busting out a pose. We're just quietly and discreetly breathing in through our nose to activate the parasympathetic and breathing out through our mouths. And we can just be doing that anywhere.
I just love breath work myself. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, really, what are we doing here as a person on this planet except learning more and more and getting ourselves more finely tuned in a healthy, happy life? That's what we're trying to do. I guess I see the operating of our system, our body-mind complex, as kind of like getting better and better at a musical instrument. And for me, breathwork's one of the fundamental parts of that.
Yeah. Exactly how I see it as well, that we are just tuning ourselves, and we're at each an individual instrument, and we could pick up someone else's instrument and we could learn how to play it, but our tone, our timbre, our resonance is ours. And so there's a one size fits one with the way that we can self-explore with any of the sort of modalities that sit on the SoulAdvisor platform. And breath is one of those ones which I find incredibly potent for self-exploration, self-awareness, being able to move ourselves into a state change that really allows us some time to be with who we are and to experience that, and to work on some of the things that have shaped us throughout our lives, some of those big T traumas and little T traumas and epigenetic traumas. And those things respond very well to the release of the system somatically through breath.
Yeah, I think it's really, really true. And I think, a lot of people are a little scared of breath work, I've heard, because they feel it's such an emotional journey. So, that's where it becomes so important, not just to set off and do it on your own, but to have somebody who, like yourself, is qualified and can hold that space for you. For me, anyway, it's been one of the most transformative types of therapies that I've ever taken on. And, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you feel in regards to how emotional your clients get and what you do about that.
It's interesting, Cate, because it's actually one of the things a lot of first-time breathers will say to me, that they're really scared. I'll say, how are you feeling today? What's your emotion? And they often say, I'm scared or stressed. And I say, let's unpack that. What is it? And for many people, the idea that there will be a place of surrender where they will lose control of themselves. And this is a key thing. If we think about our nervous systems being in service to safety, the message from our nervous system, which is the story our brain's telling us, even if we're choosing to do something which we know logically is really good for us, is going to really help us to expand, we might know that in our logical brain, but our body is driven by our limbic system and is driven by our mammalian brain. And it's saying, this isn't safe for you. What happens if everything comes out? What happens if you lose control? So a lot of what I do is, my role is to hold a safe space. My role is to reassure my clients that Our nervous systems are one of the most intelligent parts of our bodies. They have an innate intelligence that knows what we can handle. And ourselves will never let us be unsafe and unbounded. We'll never let that happen. So my job is to build a therapeutic alliance in a space with competence that says, I'm going to hold this for you. And if I see you in your journey getting to a place where you are over aroused, where you are getting too intensely into your emotion, then I can give you gentle advice to change your breathing pattern, to slow it down, to pull yourself back, and do what we call titration. So we're moving very much into the sense of being in a release. And if it's overwhelming, we come back. And some people just, they're balls deep. They just want to go deep into the release and they love it. And I'm one of those people, I have to say. And, I love just swimming around in the full kind of.
Of course you are.
But having said that doesn't suit a highly traumatized system. It doesn't suit someone with a complex PTSD, where we are taking the babyest little steps, the smallest, softest, gentlest breaths that are really designed to very much co-regulate and bring a body that is so dysregulated back into regulation. So the fear is part of our nervous system doing its job, and we have to say, thank you, nervous system. We know you've got us, but now's the time that we can just sit you to one side, because we're going to do something that is in our greater good, in our collective good. And, as someone who represents my sector and my modality, it is absolutely up to me to be incredibly aware, well-trained, and present in the room with clients to make sure that they don't have anything but a supported and a beautiful experience that allows them to start taking those steps towards self-actualization and towards autonomy.
That's it's a beautiful journey, and I love that it's intrinsic, like you're not putting anything else in the body. It's like every other earth modality, taking your shoes off and being on the earth is profound. You pick up that energy. Going out there in the sun and watching the sunrise is profound heliotherapy. Taking a dive into the water is balneotherapy. And here we are relating to air in a way that's incredibly regenerative and incredibly brings us back to our healing journey and stops us being part of, the crazy things that our mind does. It takes us out of that space and can really, really shift your basic state of being.
Yeah, so true, Cate. And I mean, I think we're hearing a lot about breathwork now because it's being more and more in the public eye because of the great healing capacity that it has, particularly for trauma. And as we're talking a lot about trauma, we tend to be talking about those modalities that very quickly and directly impact trauma. But I often have a chuckle because it's like, oh, look, we've just discovered breathwork and now we've applied some, modern patriarchal science to things, and we've ticked a box and said it's evidence-based, but we go back 4,000 years. And Chinese medicine was doing this. Ayurveda was doing this. It was being done in Japan. This is not a new modality. This is a modality that we have had as a wisdom tool in our toolbox of medicine for so long. And the wind, the idea of the air and what it can do to us as a medicine, it's so powerful. And it's a medicine that is both proactive and reactive. It's a medicine that we can use to find those state changes, to be able to take ourselves into expanded consciousness, to be able to connect with things, as much as it is a medicine that we take to heal because we have things about us that are out of alignment and our homeostasis has become dysregulated. So it's so powerful, and I love what we're finding out through science. Don't get me wrong, I'm taking the piss, but it is really interesting that we have to look back at the teleological history of this, like so many of the modalities that sit in wellness, that we have really been the custodians of that knowledge rather than the owners and the masters of them for a long time. And I very much see myself in that lineage. I'm a custodian of knowledge that's been passed on to me. And every time I work with someone, every time I'm in an active connection of healing, we are working in the space in between in that knowledge, and we're bringing in all of our guides and elders and ancestors and everyone, as much as we're bringing in modern science to work with. Every time I work with someone, every time
yeah, it's just an incredible modality. And I always think about all the efforts that have been made around the globe to bring about unity. And I think probably one of the times that I feel most unified with my fellow humans is when we raise our voice in song and everybody's breathing at that same rate. So I know when I've taught pranayama, which is not breath work, it's the yogic, yogic consideration of breath, that if somebody is feeling at odds with those around them, one of my first pieces of advice is just tune into that person, try and find the same rate of breath that they've got and feel into how they're breathing, because it's like your thumbprint, isn't it, Polly, or your iris or anything. It's very individual. So if you can tune in to somebody else's breath, then you start to begin to feel how they feel. And it's a very, very potent little trick, I guess.
There's no coincidence that every spiritual tradition in the world, from as long as we have any recorded and oral histories, uses chanting or singing as a primary mode of connection. And the neurobiology of that is really fascinating, because if we work up and down our polyvagal system, up and down our nervous system, the vagus nerve, that's the ventral vagal part of the vagus nerve, sits around the face. So if you imagine it wrapping around from the back of your head here, from your brainstem, around your cheeks, around into your eyes and your forehead, and particularly around into your throat. Now, this is the place in our nervous system when we are operating from this part, that we are in a full place of joy, connection, gratitude. The emotions that are attached to the ventral vagal part of the vagus nerve are very much in what I would see in yoga would be that place of Ishvana Pranidhana. It's like we are connected, we are safe, we are social, we're joyful. So one of the ways, if people are sitting strongly in their sympathetic nervous system here, or in their dorsal vagal down in their gut, which is often in a traumatic sense the place of collapse and of paralysis and numbing, one of the ways we bring them up from their dorsal and up into that place of safety, primarily, then joy and abundance, is through singing or through humming or through getting them to vibrate from their gut, basically, all the way up through here. So making that motion of singing, aside from the sort of the capacity to see each other all forming this note, to hear that note, which then impacts our nervous system, that feeling of the in our throats, it keeps us in this ventral vagal place. So if ever you're feeling any kind of sort of anxiety or, just at odds with the world, a really beautiful thing you can do is you can make what's known as the VOO sound. And you basically take just a very deep breath in, and you, from the beginning to the breath to the end, make a sound that is VOO. And it pulls up from your dorsal all the way up through your system. And it is absolutely fantastic for regulating the system. But I have such joy in mantra. I'm a real sort of mantra and kirtan girl. And, for me, those are the places where I feel myself becoming one. And, I'm in that real ecstasy of connection. It's so powerful and it's so beautiful. And again, another factor of breath.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, quite obviously, you use your own breath to try and regulate your own vagal nervous system. And how often do you feel yourself drawing on your breath, or is it all day, every day these days for you?
Yeah, it's all day, every day. And I don't just use it for me. I use my breath to regulate my clients when I'm in sessions. And again, because of the neuroceptive powers of our nervous system and our polyvagal system, if I feel someone coming out, the keyword feel, if I'm feeling someone moving too quickly or coming out of regulation, I make an audible pattern of breathing. And so my nervous system is saying to their nervous system, we're okay. We're here together. We're doing this as one. So I'm very attuned to that. And this is a really great de-escalator in lots of situations. If you're in a tense situation at work or in a difficult conversation, even if it's with your kids, you can just, by slowing down, by lowering your vocal tone, our voices are really a key indicator to our nervous system of stress. So, the prosody of our voices, when it's nice and calm and deep, it will calm a child down, calm a human down. The more high-pitched we get, the more we get into anxiety, the more people are like, So I use it all the time, and I use it as a tool to bring situations down. But on myself, I think because I spend a lot of time in that world of felt sense, in that somatic experiencing world, I feel something happening. I know in my body that story follows state. So if I feel something, then I start having sort of any kind of thoughts that I'm like, that's not how I want to think and be in the world. That's not how I want to approach with curiosity and generosity. Then I know I need to stop and take a breath. I need to take several breaths, or I need to become aware of what has just happened that might have pushed me into a place of dysregulation. So I can take care of my own stuff and not work it out on someone else. So I can be the best adult in the room, particularly in rooms full of adults with trauma who are just children acting out like I am a lot of the time. I know that I can have the capacity to be that bigger, stronger, braver, wiser role model.
really that's emotional maturity, isn't it? It's being able to take the responsibility for a greater number of people, a greater number of issues, etc. And fundamentally, the reason we do all this healing is to try and be able to take a bigger role of service in our communities and our families and in the world. And I'd love, this is just fascinating, and there's things that I've never heard of before. So thank you very much. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to fool me. So I really love to hear some things I've never heard before. What I would love to ask you is, as a breathwork therapist and a yogi, what's your vision of a healed world? There's a little question for you. How does the world look?
Only the small questions, please. For me, the world looks as a place where we are actually able to see each other as a divine spark. So I'm looking out the window now in my therapy space, and all around me are beautiful big trees. And one of the things in my very first breathwork journey, which was something I stumbled across, I didn't have any intention of being a breathworker. I was just doing some breathwork because I met some cool people that seemed to have their shit together. And I'm like, oh, I want what you're having. And I went and did a retreat with them. And I remember having this profound experience where I was shown my connection and my place with nature. And the message was very strongly to me that if I want to understand self-awareness, if I want to understand oneness, if I want to understand what a united world looks like, I have to look out the window and I have to look at the silent grace of nature, standing there with benevolence, with grace, with kindness, with compassion, no matter what us humans do as we bumble our way around as supposed apex predators. And that's the way I see the world now. So I think of us very much in what Tyson Yunkaporta would call those indigenous systems of thinking. I'm not differentiated to the trees, to the rocks, to my other human beings. I can have discernment and boundaries within those relationships, but I am fundamentally at a core level organic matter that is here, that will come and go in waves and disappear into the ground and reform as something else. And all of that experience is valid and interesting and worthy. And the moment we start seeing ourselves as greater than or lesser than or different to is the moment where we begin to think that we have some individual agency which is holding us separate and apart from someone else. So for me, in my little old humanness, the thing I strive for every single day is to be able to see every other human from that place of divinity. I say to myself in the morning, I do meditation and I say, let me walk through the world with the eyes of God. And I don't mean that in terms of a religious God or of an all-seeing punishing God. I mean that in the eyes of the Creator that makes every single thing available to each of us as an ecosystem. And I want to be able to have that compassion, not be judging and not be feeling at any point that I am not with that network. And the trees and the plants really tell me that so strongly. So that's what I see it as, Cate. I see it as us all taking collective responsibility for loving and compassion and recognizing and seeing ourselves as just these incredible gifts of nature.
Polly, that's such beautiful words. And, like I just totally resonate with what you're saying. Like we are all one. That's the story. And, the healing comes in understanding that fundamentally, that there is no division and we rise and fall in this form or that form. And the breath takes us there, and we share this breath across this whole globe, in and out of every living creature and being, and even in and out of the rocks. So I want to finish that. Especially the rocks. I'm not forgetting any rock, not one. There's grains of sand. We're all part of this living, breathing ecosystem. And the sooner that we understand our integral role, there will be no lack of purposefulness, will there? And there'll be no lack of understanding that each of us is essential in this whole pattern that we've created.
But I think it's also really important to note, as we're going into this festive season and as we're at a very difficult and a conflicting time in the world, that the people we have to love the most are the ones that don't share our opinions, the ones that we have that nervous system reaction to, because it's really easy to kind of go, oh, yes, I'm at one with all the people who share my views and who are great, but I'm not at one with those people. And this is the challenge I set myself all the time, is literally to be walking through the supermarket, looking at people in my mind saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, because we are not different. And I need to be able to stand there in the full presence of that with every human.
Open, connected breath. Hallelujah. Let's hope that we can all do that. you know, and now more than ever, in a time when we've created yet another form of division between those who do and those who don't choose vaccination. There's so many forms of division in this planet that we falsely create, and they're based on fear. So let's move into love. And I'd love to thank you for being here and sharing your wise words. And if you don't mind, I'll be sharing these words out widely. Yeah, it's been such a joy, as always, to talk to you. So if people can't make it all the way down to Launceston, to Anima Mundi, your beautiful studio, how can they reach you best? I guess through SoulAdvisor, to do a discovery call. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I mean, I do a lot of work remotely. My preference is always to have nervous systems in real life regulation for big work, but I do a lot of somatic therapy and somatic coaching, and I work with a lot of clients around the world like this. And this is a beautiful, effective way to make connections. So we can breathe like this, and I look forward to seeing you whenever you feel called to be part of this ecosystem with me.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much for being here today. Take care. Have a lovely end of 2021 and hello 2022.
Hello 2022. We're ready. Thanks, everyone. Look after yourselves.
Bye, Polly. See you.
Bye.